Imagine a place where time stands still. An island where the ships never dock. Your home that you can never leave. That's San Amsterdam, the city of skate. And have you ever wondered how many people actually live in Sandman? No? Well, I guess you do wonder now. So, to actually figure out how many people live in this fictional city, we're gonna have to determine which buildings people can live in and which buildings people can't live in. And to do that, I'm going to have to go from building to building and look at how it is presented. Does the buildings have balconies, for example, that indicates that people live there? Or does it have a corporate logo or text that indicates that it is an office? And let's put down some ground rules to make all this counting a bit easier. I'm gonna say that each apartment have at least a family living in them. And according to Google AI, that's about 3.45 people. So let's round that down to a nice 3. Except for when the apartment looks larger than others, then I would say we round that number up to a nice 4. So, to start things off, I'm going through every district, one by one. And I'm beginning in Hedgemont, because that's the first district unlocked to the player at the beginning. And I'm starting with this building down to the right of the district, over the ever-changing skateboard. And don't worry, I'm not going to show the process of me going through every building. Just the first apartment building I find so you can get an idea of how I figure out how many residents all the buildings have. Okay, so I roll up to the building, all eager to start my counting journey, and notice that this building appears to be an office building of some sort. And my reasoning for that is the way that this building looks and the entrances of this building. And even all the different advertising and billboards. I don't think people would want to live in a building jam-packed with advertising billboards. So on to the next building. And this building seems to be on San Amsterdam's Walk of Fame street. And by the looks of it, the bottom part looks like a cinema. And I was going to count the top part as an apartment at first, but the more I looked into it, the more it made less sense to count it as apartments. I would rather say it's an empty warehouse part of some sort, or like an old abandoned factory. At least it's not accessible to the public. And by the way, something I noticed is that some windows around San Amsterdam have this empty room with just a whiteboard texture in them. But hold on, the fast travel point right next to this building right here is named Reels Theatre. Why would there be 2 cinemas right next to each other? Maybe the small one is an old theater and the bigger one is the newer one and they built it here to try to push the competition away. Or the real theater is just a theater and not a movie theater. I have no idea. So type in the comments what you think. But onto the towers built on top of this theater. They actually look like they could be apartments. Because of the terrace with a pool in it and the sunbathing chairs. So let's start the counting to see how many people could live in these towers. So let's start with tower number 1. And I would guess that the first 3 levels is just the lobby or staff only floors or something along the lines of that. And because I can't look inside the building, I'm going to have to decide where each floor starts, so I'm gonna go with these lines right here. Those are the markers for where each different floor starts and ends. So in this building there are 6 floors. And let's say that these thicker columns are the separators for each apartment. But to not make each apartment too spacious, let's just say that by these 7 long windows, that I just noticed isn't centered with the entrance down below, that those 3 in the middle is reserved for a hallway on each floor. So in this building there are 6 floors and approximately 43 apartments. And you might wonder how there can be an uneven number of apartments. Well, that's because of the shape of the tower and the grass patches on one side of the building. And let's just say that those rooms behind the grass patches are janitor closets or something like that. And on the other side are the 3 biggest apartments in this tower. But back to how many people actually live here. Because there are 40 normal sized apartments that have the family size of just 3 people, and then the 3 bigger sized apartments that have the larger family size of 4 people living in them. That means there are about 141 people living in just this tower alone. And in the second tower, if we go by the same calculations as the first building, we have 125 people living in this tower, with 35 normal sized apartments and 5 apartments being the larger ones. Now the third and final tower that is built on top of this theater, I went with a different strategy than the other 2, because if you count these windows here, you get an uneven number. And that isn't good if we want to have normal sized apartments. But if we want the bigger sized apartments, then this is perfect. So here on this side there are 27 of the bigger sized apartments. And right next to those there are just 9 normal sized apartments. 36 normal sized apartments on this side and 27 normal sized apartments on this side. So in this third and last tower we have 108 people living in the bigger apartments and 216 people living in the smaller ones. And that makes the total come to 324 people in this tower alone. That's 58 more people than Tower 1 and Tower 2 combined. But now you might wonder how many people we have counted for so far. So to answer that, we are now officially up to 590 people living in San Amsterdam so far. And that may not seem like a lot, but oh, just you wait. Because I can tell you right now that no sane person should ever do this ever again. Okay, so now that you understand how I count the people living in each building, I'm gonna go through the rest of this district a little bit faster, otherwise this video would be around 40 hours long. The first building I would say is either a radio tower or a very fancy office building, so not important. This building has a sign in front of it that reads Northview Suites. So I think I would be correct to guess that people live here. And because there are suites, I will count the families here as the larger size. So this building has around 18 stories with 144 different suites. And that means up to 576 people live in this building. This place is called the Presidium Residences. And under it, it says Citadel, which I believe is an Easter egg for Mass Effect. The more you know. But this place also has 144 of those bigger apartments. But it also has 36 normal sized apartments on the back. So in total this complex has 684 residents. This building with a funny roof behind the Presidium has a lot more balconies, maybe too many. But only 132 suites. I mean, it has like at least 2 balconies per suite. And on this side they have 3. And I guess it's like meant to be 1 balcony for each suite, but these on the corners are a bit too close to each other to have it like that. So I'm counting it as 2 balconies for each apartment. So in total this building has 528 residents. And now we come to the more normal, more affordable apartments with a Ratatouille wannabe restaurant on the ground floor. So this first one has around 24 people living here. And as you can see on the roof, these are actually 2 separate buildings. This one also has 24 residents. This building has 24 as well, and this one actually only has 18 residents. With this building we're splitting the rooms in half, so we're left with 48 residents in this complex. This one has 8 families in it, so 24 separate humans if you can't count. And this one is a bit weird, because I think the rooms are cut like this, and maybe the single windows are in like the hallways. Anyways, that makes this building contain 48 residents. Get ready for a speedrun.
3, 2, 1, go!
18, 12, 24 and 36. Finally done with these smaller places. Let's move on to the high-risers. But wait, you might wonder why I skipped this little building. Well, that's because this is a hotel and spa. Don't believe me? Just read that little sign right there. You might have to go a bit closer. Now on to the high-rises. This is an insurance company building. Not the high-riser, but this is the city council building. This appears to be the Grabster building. Grabster being the company that made it possible to grab any music around the city that you like. So this is definitely an office building. Now this could very well be an office too, but we haven't had a residential building in a while, so... But hold on. What am I seeing here? Is that... No, that couldn't be... Wait. Is this also a theater? So you're telling me that this little theater we saw at the beginning is next to that giant Reels theater. And this Reels theater is next to this other movie theater. Make this make sense. Is this common in the US of A? Or is there some hidden lore here where... In the 1960s, the little theater was here first. Then, when M-Corp moved into San Van, they tried to force everyone out who wasn't willing to cooperate with them. Anyways, back to counting. And yes, I'm still gonna count this Tower Cinema as a residential building. But I'm going to skip some of the lower levels just because it's a cinema. But this M-Corp cinema has approximately 531 people living in it. This building right here beside it could definitely be either one. It's impossible to tell because it's just so bland and has no defining features on it. And the only text, or should I say numbers, it has on it is this 1200. So it's almost impossible for me to tell what it is. But because it's so close to the mega building, I would say that this is an office building. Same goes for the building 1100, right beside it. And the same for the Mega M-Corp building itself, of course. Onto this building behind the M-Corp tower. I can definitely see this building as an apartment complex, so this building gets approved and has a whopping 693 inhabitants. But the building right next to it doesn't get approved, so on to the next one. And now the last building in Hedgemont, this little diamond-shaped apartment complex, has around 198 people living in it. So now, after adding up all the different apartments and suites in Hedgemont, we get a stunning 4,100 on the dot. Incredible. But anyway, let's head over to a small village named Gullcrest. Let's begin with the tall building next to the parking garage. And I'm not sure if it's apartments or offices, because all I could find here were on the side pointing away from the parking garage. There's one bank, one cafe, one high-end clothing brand, and one women's lingerie store. But the rest of the building looks like it could have apartments in it, or suites, I would say. But I'm not sure, so let's say that this is a split residential and commercial building, with stores on the bottom, offices in the middle, and suites only in the top tower. And I think that is okay, because just in that top tower there is 28 whole levels, and that brings our total of residents in this building to a staggering 672. Let's keep it in the neighborhood and move on to these 4 apartment units, and let's count them fast. 75, 45, 21, 126. This small little building right next to the garage has 243 inhabitants. This building has 363 residents in normal apartments and 180 people living in suites, including the big suite on the very top, totaling at 543 people. And these 2 buildings is actually just one big museum, so not important. And this here is actually a meteorology building, so you could kind of say that this whole building is just a weather station. And this, I believe, is just a college or school of some sort, so yet again, not important. But what is important is the whole village section in Gullcrest. And because it's so big, I'm just gonna count it all together instead of going from house to house and tell you each building's residents. So in this village part alone, there lives around 1,715 people. That's a lot more than I originally thought. But anyhow, let's continue with our counting and move on to these last 2 buildings in Gullcrest Village, on Drumheller Drive. And I would say that these 2 buildings look like inhabitable towers, so let's count their population. And beginning with this slimmer building, around 240 people can live here. And in this larger building, there is 684 people living here. Insane difference if you ask me. But now we're finally done with Gullcrest Village, and the total head count for this district is 4,364. A little more people seems to choose Gullcrest over Hedgemont. Maybe it's a more welcoming district to newcomers? Who knows? But let's head over to the long mile filled with markets, and I'm of course talking about Market Mile. And to start our mile-long journey, we will begin right here, next to the Extrovert shop. And firstly, this building is likely an office building, but this building right next to the shop, at first I thought it could maybe be an apartment building with an interesting entrance, but then when I went to the other side, I saw the M-Corp logo. This wavy looking building I know is a mall, namely the Grabster Mall, because of the fast travel point nearby. So on to the next building being, don't kill me, but it seems that these 2 buildings are also offices. The 2 Impervatech towers. I mean, are there even any buildings here that could go as apartments? Wait, let me check real quick. No, this is an office, or the City Vault I believe. This building looks too grand to be an apartment complex. Okay, well this must be the place. See what I did there? No, but really, this must be apartments. I mean, just look at all these AC units. Okay, so this building has 90 people living here. Okay, So far, we have 90 residents here in Market Mile. But we've only checked half the mile, so let's check the other half. Let's see. Office. This building has 345 residents. This looks like the other M-Corp building we looked at, so office yet again, financial office. This looks like the Mace Bank office from GTA Online. This one has 504 people living in it. Office and office. So this is an apartment complex, and it has approximately 720 residents. And that's just insane. And funnily enough, that was the last building in Market Mile. And the total of people living here is 1,659, with most of the people living here in this tower. But let's see what the last and final district has in store for us. That district being, of course, Brickswich. So let's start here in the corner of Brickswich. And to me, this looks like an apartment building. But the tiny building next to it is most definitely not. I mean, just look at the windows. But anyways, this apartment complex has 156 residents. And let's group all these tiny apartment buildings together to make it easier. And their total is 153. And believe it or not, that's it here in Brickswich. Because all the other buildings here includes an old train station, a factory by the name of Stale Fish Bevy & Co., a factory warehouse, what looks to be either a modern school or tiny offices, a bank, or to me looks more like an hotel, and finally the Lucre Financial Coliseum, aka the stadium. But that brings our total here in Brickswich to a staggering 309 residents. Not so many compared to all the other districts. But speaking of all the other districts, let's finally see how many people actually live here in St. Amsterdam. Starting with Brickswich, there were 309 people there. And in Market Mile, there were 1,659 people. In Gullcrest Village, there were 4,364. And finally in Hedgemont, there were 4,100 people. And adding them all together, we get 10,432 inhabitants. That's quite a lot of skaters in this city alone. So there you have it, the unofficial official population of St. Amsterdam. And what will you and I do with this information? Who knows? Will I ever try something like this ever again? I hope not. Should you do this and see if I was wrong? No, because I don't want anyone to suffer as I have. And I also don't want to be proven wrong. But I hope you enjoyed and liked the video. And if you have an idea of what I could do next or what I can do better in these types of videos, don't be afraid to comment. I enjoy reading all your guys' comments. Thank you. Bye bye.